Hi, welcome back to Eight Figure Entrepreneur, where we highlight the businesses, the systems, and the mindsets of the entrepreneurs that drive them to those eight-figure revenues. Joining me today is a close friend, Ash Mehrotra of the Hospitality Guru. How are you, Ash?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you for asking me to be on your podcast. That's exciting. So anytime I get to talk and just go on about things that nobody else wants to hear about, it's nice to be asked for somebody to talk. So thank you.
Perfect. All right. So, in a quick 1 minute pitch, tell us what your company does, what the figures are, and where you're headed next.
We own and operate hotels, and we own the real estate, and then we actually, franchise it. So we're essentially a small business, and it's really a real estate business that specializes in hospitality. Ultimately, our core competency is to make sure that the guests are happy, that the franchise is happy, and the employees are happy.
I was just gonna say you have six properties right now.
Yeah, we have about six properties. We have like 220 employees across those six properties, and we have developed them from ground up. Three of them we've developed from ground up. The other three we've acquired. We also plan on doing some further development with in this business.
Wonderful. Um, what was the founding motivation? How did you get started into this?
Well, what you'll find whenever you talk to people in this business is it's usually a family kind of a legacy type of business. Most people get started because their parents were in it, and somebody joined, and there was a partnership, and maybe the kids came and they expanded it or something like that. So my story is similar. So my father actually started the business a long time ago, but he had humble beginnings. We used to live at a hotel. We used to live at hotels when he was going up the chain in the industry, and I used to live in the manager's suite of a Holiday Inn Express. The bus used to pick me up from the marquee sign that said, free breakfast, Holiday Inn Express. So I grew up in the business. Thankfully for me, I've always wanted to be in business ever since I was little. Ever since I could remember, I was enterprising. I wanted to sell things and look at charging prices and all these things. I was selling pictures and pixie sticks and candy in school and all that stuff. So it worked out that I eventually went on to graduate from Kelly School of Business in Indiana University, and then I joined my dad's business. At the time, it was two hotels, and now we've grown to about six. I do have some other partners as well. So founding motivation. You gotta make money, pay the bills, eat food. So I guess that is a quick summary.
Okay. And so growing up, you must have seen the flip side of making money through this route, which is the sweat, the toils, the sleepless nights, maybe. Was there a part of you that wanted not to be a part of the hotel industry and work on something else as an enterprise?
Yeah, there was a lot of different businesses that I was like, hey, that would be interesting, that would be neat. But to be honest, every business, every kind of industry has its own set of challenges, and just like hospitality does, I was more interested in the process of solving challenges. It could be of any industry, and I already had a head start in this industry, knowing the ins and outs growing up. So I said, why let that experience go to waste? Why let some of those things that I've learned that I have an upper hand than somebody new entering the industry? Why let that go to waste? There's going to be challenges in this industry that I'm going to enjoy solving. There's going to be things that I enjoy about this business. So I chose to focus on that
Okay.
more than, well, let me create a perfect environment by going to another career or something. I don't know. I mean, the grass is always greener, right? So I just kind of stuck to where I was at.
Okay. Now we'll come back to the hotel industry, but as you explore those other businesses, can you talk some more about the maybe some of the investors, maybe some of the entrepreneurs that you followed and what you learned from them just by either reading books or following them online or in person?
That's a good question. A couple of the ones that, there's some just classic, tech probably comes to mind. I mean, the Bill Gates and the Steve Jobs. And, I like that movie, The Social Network, where it said, Mark Zuckerberg's, kind of how he started. And, it's just these big companies, these giant companies, it's just interesting to see where they kind of started. And it was, for example, Apple was, they were cutting edge, and there was a lot of trials and tribulations that Steve Jobs went through. And I thought just looking into his background, his past, some of the things that he's went through, it was something that you could draw inspiration and learn from. And the other person actually was Benjamin Franklin. I read Walter Isaacson's biography of Benjamin Franklin, and he was quite an entrepreneur and business owner. I don't know. I could go on for a long time about some
Please
of the
do.
things that I took from that, but yeah, those are some of the examples that come to mind of people that I looked up to, or I thought that they did some really interesting and fun things and overcome some big challenges. And if you have any recommendations, I'm always looking to read something else about new people. So I always keep my kind of eyes open.
Yeah, I'll definitely link to some of the recommendations that I have in the video description below, and also send you some of my personal favorites. What are some of the inspirations that you took from studying those other people
Well,
that you
one
applied to your business?
Yeah. Well, one thing is that I have a tendency to always kind of plan and always think to, maybe overthink and just kind of like play out all the scenarios in my head. And just sometimes that is not helpful. Of course, you have to have a plan. But many of these people, they focused on acting more than they did, kind of continuous planning in the planning phase forever. You're just going to have to go out there and you're just going to have to take the first few steps and iterate, right?
Hmm.
That's a big thing because you're just going to learn on the go a little bit, and if one thing fails, then the next thing hopefully can work, and you do it on a weekly, monthly, quarterly basis, whatever it
Yeah,
is. You iterate, you have a new iteration of it based on what you've learned. All of these people that I followed, they did that. That's something that was a kind of a key to their success, is that they just went out there, they failed, they learned, they got back up, they said, let's try something different. So I try to apply that to a lot of the stuff that we do. And by the way, we're not a startup. This is not a fledgling industry. This is a very oldest real estate, probably the oldest business in the world is real estate. I don't know. I mean, I don't know that for sure, but I think it's one of the oldest businesses is real estate and hospitality.
everybody has their version of what the oldest business is. Uh, and there's probably a crude joke to be made there. But it's
Yeah.
interesting you brought that up. One of my mentors always used to say, "Shipped is better than perfect." And you're embodying that element of ship it out or build it, iterate upon it, gather feedback, and then have that continuous loop of ongoing improvement. And you have improved and iterated. And how? Tell me. So you are, if I remember that correctly, you're on the Holiday Inn committee, the exec council for one of the emerging leaders. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. So, I volunteer in a couple of different associations. And through the years, I've learned a lot from some of the people that I've, kind of worked with. But this association is essentially an advocacy group for hotel owners with the franchisor. And because of some of the things that I've contributed, I've been asked to lead, a couple of different working groups, really, and be just recently asked to step into a leadership position of Holiday Inn Committee, which we have one of a hotel that's a Holiday Inn, and work with closely with the senior executives at IHG, which is a large publicly traded company, to improve the brand. It is something that I've been doing for a while, but this is now, kind of in a leadership position. So I'm looking forward to.
It's great. And then you also won an award for the Burger of the Year. That's
Yeah, yeah.
that may be random to the listeners, but tell us the story behind that.
I mean, so we have a restaurant in one of our hotels, and it's a burger restaurant. And each year there's a corporate submission. So there's about 36 of these restaurants in Holiday Inn specifically. The corporate people ask every restaurant to submit a burger where they, go through a tasting, like a blind tasting. They don't know what's coming from where, and then they pick a winner at the end. And we submitted one with the chef and the general manager created it. It wasn't my idea. I wish I could take more credit for it, but I just ate it, it was delicious. So I just said, yeah, go ahead, submit it. And we ended up winning that contest, which is, it's fun. It's not a huge deal, but at the same time, it means a lot to the employees and the general
Yeah.
manager, and they were very excited to win that award. So yeah, just small wins like that can really help your team, kind of keep going in these long periods of where they're just grinding. So yeah.
How else do you take care of the employees? Because you mentioned more than 200 employees that you have across the six properties. How do you ensure that they feel heard and that they're doing their best job to just really provide the guests those comfort that you would expect them to?
Yeah, well, so all of the employee, everybody, I think is a human characteristic, wants to be heard and wants to be valued. And how do you show that in a business setting? Well, for us, it comes down to a few simple things. Obviously, recognition and kind of appreciation. So doing appreciation events, having recognition, kind of meetings and things like that. We're calling people out by name, handing out awards for great service, or if your name was mentioned in a review, all those things. But then also kind of putting our money where a mouth is and offering really good health insurance, offering a really good 401k plan, things like that, monetary thing, maybe being flexible with their work schedule within reason,
Yeah,
everybody has
sure.
family and things like that. Can you honor a request from an employee that is otherwise a dedicated and a hardworking employee about, if they're have a sick kid at home or something like that? Yeah, of course, let's
Absolutely.
work with them. So it's just really comes down to getting on the same level with the employee, showing them that, hey, this is a good place for you to work. You do your job, we do ours, we protect you, and you take care of business as far as what servicing the guest is concerned. So yeah, those are some of the examples of how I approach it.
In the long term, the intended outcome is that they stick with you loyally. In the short term, how do they react when you show those moments of genuine human connection with your employees? How do they react?
Usually it's a relief. They just feel like a relief. They're carrying around this weight, this burden. Some of the employees, they may have personal situations at home or whatever the case is, and they feel like they're having different battles in their life. And when we show them that this is not your job and the people that you work with doesn't have to be another battle for you. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to worry about winning this battle. And just showing those gestures, it just kind of, it's like a weight lifted. They're relieved, they're relaxed. They're like, okay, I don't have to go and like tooth and claw my way to what I want where I work. So I guess that's like the first reaction that I see a lot of times
Just that
when we do
relief.
something. Yeah.
Okay, that does make a lot of sense. So, six active properties right now. Help me
Mhm.
understand how you're valuing or how you're evaluating those properties in terms of next year it's still going to be six or seven or eight, whatever that number is. So how are you going on to acquire new properties or building new ones, and how do you decide which ones to sell?
Well, we are in a long term hold situation.
Okay,
Generally, I mean, if you think about it, Shalin, I mean, the problem with selling properties is what do you do with the money? You have to pay taxes. You can do a 1031 exchange. You can put it in another property. Those are all difficult things. Where do you find another great property that you can just be like, okay, I'm going to sell this one? And yeah, I don't get it's like day trading stocks or something. It's not for me. I'm like the long term holder or whatever. Identify some winners, hold them for the long term. That's how we approach it. So, if there was a pro forma or a graph showing our hold period, it would go into infinity. However, there are some reasons, and we have sold properties before, and we've
sure.
bought acquired properties. Obviously, in some cases, they're just in towards the end of their like kind of financial life cycle, meaning that you have a big renovation coming up,
Hmm.
and there may be a better opportunity for you to spend those funds building a new property or buying something that's closer to your geographical range. So you may decide to say, okay, let me see if we can go ahead and back out of this investment. It's been a great investment. However, let's see if we can turn these funds into something a little bit newer, something that we can has a little bit more potential for future growth. So those opportunities don't for us, they don't like come by very often because we only focus on sort of lower risk and really surefire opportunities as far as investing is concerned, because it is very expensive. I mean, hotel business is extremely capital intensive,
Hmm.
right? So you just want to make sure that when you are putting your money, like it's going to be okay. You don't have to sit there and say, all right, well, there's all these different properties coming up in the market, and we may have to sell, or we might have to panic and do something drastic like drop rates to try to win customers. So it's getting more competitive, and that's why we like to hold, stay the long term, and really let other things dictate when we sell the property and not actively look to sell or buy anything really.
Okay, so flipping doesn't seem to be the mantra here. It's more of a buy really good properties, invest in
Right.
them, and then hold them
Right.
for the long term.
Yes, yes. And of course, like I said, there's some factors that will come up that
Hmm.
will make sense to offload a property, like I said, in the financial life cycle, big renovation, that sort of thing. But yeah, there's many factors that have to converge for us. This is just us. I have investor friends that, pick up properties, they sell, they hold for 3 years, they sell it, do a improvement plan, PIP, what we call in the industry, add some value and then sell it. But right now, it's becoming very competitive too. There's a lot of money chasing assets. As you know, inflation is real, and it's very much affecting prices of all assets, not just food and all that stuff, right? I mean, houses, everybody knows houses are the all-time highs. So is commercial property, so are commercial hotels, right? So if you sell to buy another one,
Hmm.
you're going to be paying a lot, right?
Yeah.
So those are some of the things that we consider, especially in today's environment.
If you had to make a prediction on the industry for the next 4 years, what might that look like in broad terms?
Next 4 years, first of all, I'm really bad at predictions. So I the thing is, it's funny because it's like people that are experts at predictions are also bad at predictions. So, but
Like a weather forecast.
yeah, right. Well. Anyway, if there was some science that I could apply to the industry right now, I would say it's in a precarious position because we've had all of this activity post COVID, of like this revenge travel, this catch up travel that we've seen in the hospitality industry. We've had some big numbers, huge numbers in North America. Globally, I think it's still recovering a little bit, but in North America, we've seen a lot of kind of comebacks after like 2022, 2023, or some hotels historically largest years. Now we're seeing people pulling back. They have spent enough. They are feeling a little bit more pinch in the pocket, and then also corporations are looking to scale back on their travel spending. It's discretionary, so they're hoping to maybe invest a little bit more, save where they can, and that's a big part of our business is corporate travel. So until that starts to come back, until there is a level of comfort that there is going to be more corporate spending, I think that we're going to be kind of in a precarious position. I don't see any big landslide or a big huge drop off,
Mm.
but as far as growth is concerned, I don't see much growth either. I see us, kind of in a
At some point.
yeah, exactly. Within 5-10%, up and down, until maybe interest rates come back down and corporations can borrow money, spend a little bit, a little easier. So those are some of the factors that I see influencing us in the next 3 or 4 years. I mean, it's a little bit of a precarious time. We have to be careful. We have to manage our expenses. We have to do everything that we can control to make sure that our properties are market leaders and all of those things. So very important to work hard right now to make sure that we don't get hurt by maybe some things that other people may not make it through because they're not ready. So
So thinking more about Hospitality Guru and less about the IHG brand, which you're heavily involved with.
yeah.
How do you separate yourself from other companies which may still hold the IHG brand? So are those your competitors, first of all?
Sure. So, yeah, so definitely, I feel like there's a lot of competition out there. Yeah, I mean, owners and operators, the way that I see it as, the brand is, IHG, Marriott, Hilton, or whatever. It doesn't really matter. It matters the individual, the ownership group that's behind that brand, because they are the ones that are influencing a lot of the success of those brands doing well or those hotels doing well, because it's such a specialized business. Yes, as far as what we differentiate, again, this is not like some kind of a very nuanced or new fledgling type of business. This is an old school, we're open 365 days a year. We have somebody at the front desk. There's somebody needs to be cooking breakfast, dinner. So it is really about making people happy, including your employees. If you can do that well, then it's like, okay, the competition can do whatever they want, but people are going to come back to you because they know what to expect. There's a level of consistency, there's a level of service, and there's all these things. There's promises that we are upholding. So that's the main thing, upholding promises of hospitality.
Mm.
And it's hard. It's hard because not everybody is experienced on how to manage a hotel or a restaurant or run a bar or greet the customer or all of those things. So that's how I would say that it kind of differentiates us, because we are a little bit more local in the sense that we don't grow too big. We don't just hire anyone. We don't like just pick up a property here and there and just, say, okay, we'll figure out the management of it later. We sort of work backwards to say, do we have the right people to be able to enter this market? Do we have the right skill set to get into this development and build this type of hotel? So those are the things we just try to be very careful, and hopefully that will result in a good product that customers will continue to return to. So if that answers any of your question
Oh,
as to what
absolutely.
differentiates us. Yeah.
So, so you mentioned earlier that the school bus used to pick you up from the Holiday Inn Monument sign. Those days of being heavily emotionally invested at the hotel, and now growing a little bit apart, maybe not so operationally involved, but more of as a portfolio owner, more of as an owner, more of driving other franchisees to do what's best for the brand. What are some of the systems that you've set up that allows you to automate the operations as well as scale up in terms of your entrepreneurship growth?
Yeah, I mean, a lot going on. It's a good question. Whenever you're kind of there in the day to day, I think it's very important, especially in the beginning. And I was lucky to have that experience at a very young age. It would be difficult to have that experience when, I have a family and I'm trying to like figure out what to do with my life or whatever. Like I didn't, it's not like I had too much going on. I was like 10 years old or whatever the case was, 10 to 15, 10 to 16 years old. And I got all that experience, but it taught me a lot as to what to look for now that I'm in my ownership position and overseeing the portfolio.
Mm.
I understand the little tips and the tricks. I can actually help employees whenever they have a question. I can walk into a hotel and I can point out things to the maintenance people, to the housekeeping people to make their jobs easier, ask the right questions, all of those things. So, in one way to answer the first part of your question, that initial bit was difficult, but I was fortunate enough to have it early, and now it is able to serve me in my role now.
So
As
having
far as
navigated through all of that allows you to better help your employees navigate through similar situations. Did I hear that correctly?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
absolutely, absolutely. And the thing is, um, I have noticed, and not that everybody has to work in a hotel for 10 years and live there or whatever to have respect from your employees. For me, being a younger person in the industry and working with people that are much older than me in some cases, one way to kind of garner some respect is explaining and just telling them that, hey, this is my story. Something like this happened to me. There was a time where we were sold out and we oversold by 15 rooms, and I was behind the front desk when my dad was trying to figure out what to do with the other 15 people standing in the lobby looking for their room. So those types of anecdotes and that experience, it helps me garner some respect from these people that have been there for a while, maybe initially thinking like, who is this young kid, he's just coming in here, his daddy owns the hotel, whatever they're thinking, right?
Sure, sure.
And I don't blame them, whatever. That's fine. It's my job to earn their respect. I'm not. I shouldn't walk in and be entitled to that. It's my job to show them that I can add value to their job, their lives, and that sort of thing. So again, back to your
Can I pause you over there? Don't leave us on such a cliffhanger. What did happen to those 15 people who had overbooked?
we let's see what happened. We actually had a sister property that we worked with
Okay.
that we were able to move about 8 or 9 people to. The rest of the people we had to actually have to buy buy rooms for at a competitor hotel in the same market, and we had to pay for their entire stay and everything like that. That's generally what happens when you
But you made
oversell.
it work for the guests.
Absolutely. That's the number one. That's the number one thing. You cannot just say, "I'm sorry, you're going to have to figure it out." We were on the phone. We were calling other hotels. We were talking to our sister property and saying, "How many can you take?" And if they said we can take 7 or 8, we still have 7 or 8 to work out. And mind you, those 7 or 8 didn't necessarily want to travel the extra 15 or 20 minutes to that property. So we had to say, hey, like, we'll give you 50% off, whatever. This is our fault, but it's a great property, et cetera, et cetera. And then the other ones, we just had to pay. Said, you know what, we'll take care of your entire trip. The 2 3 nights that you're staying, we'll pay for your bill at a hotel that's across the street or whatever the case is. So we took the hit, but that's what you have to do. You have to keep the hospitality promise, and thankfully. everybody was okay, and we didn't have any major complaints or bad reviews or anything like that.
Sorry, and before I interrupted you, you were about to say the second thing.
The second thing, part of your question, was about scaling and tools in place to help
Right.
kind of oversee. I have a very advanced tool that I use. I have it right here. It's a notebook.
Love it.
I write in it every day. Um,
I love
and
it.
there's just no like one thing or some piece of technology, or it's just not like that, man. I mean, I've looked, I've tried to see how can I, scale or do things that will amplify my time or leverage my time. And what it really comes down to is clarity of intention. I have to understand what I want to grow, what I want to do, and once that is clear, then I plan my day, my weeks, and things like that around that. And specifically in this industry, again, if I can just hold those touch points with my day-to-day management team, I can review those reports that are coming in on a daily basis, which are not advanced reports. I just get an email with reports, right? Learning to go through these fast, understanding, kind of where the pain points are. So I get a kind of a download that picture, and then making that call to that general manager or whatever, touching base with them. So that's how I keep track of how we're doing operationally. And of course, I have some partners too that help, and they do the same thing with other hotels. And there is a big part of our business that is requiring, for example, the financing of hotels, valuing, dealing with appraisers, banks, attorneys. I do that for our entire organization, and that also takes about 50% of my time.
Okay.
Those are things that you just can't rush. When you're signing a $15 million loan,
Hmm.
that's not something that you're just like you outsource to AI. You know what I mean?
You
Like, you don't
can't.
do that.
You can't.
So like I wish I had a better answer. I don't. I just try to keep myself organized. I write things down, and I just have a routine. That's it.
Talking about that routine, and it'd be great to see your notebook. Maybe when we'll meet for coffee later.
Sure.
How have you stacked your habits on a day-to-day, on a weekly, on a monthly, on an annual basis, and how has that helped you?
Should I personally, or like as far as my business sort of business habits are concerned?
My assumption is that one flows into the other. So
Yeah,
feel free to,
sure.
yeah.
Yeah, sure. So, as far as habits and things are concerned, I over the years I've tried to go to bed earlier, and that has helped. And just, waking up early enough to where I can have a quick meditation session in the morning. I'm usually thinking about work things. I have a notebook with me, and every time I get a thought that I feel like ruminating on, I just write it down next to me in my notebook, and I close the book and I just keep going. So about 15, 20 minutes of that. I mean, some days I'm picking up the notebook every 30 seconds. Some days 15 minutes goes by, 20 minutes goes by, and I'm just like, wow, that was great. I didn't even think of anything. That kind of helps me be organized and feel less anxious about things that I have to work on. And then, other than that, I just try to work out just for my mental and physical health. I have a small 2 year old with my wife. She also works full time, so it can be a lot of time actually in the morning, just making sure that he's fed, that she's fed, and then I'm off to work, whether it's a phone call or whatever the case is. So it's not an overly complicated morning routine, but I try to stick to it. If I can meditate, if I can work out, if I can make sure my family is fed before everybody leaves the house, that usually sets me up for a good day.
Perfect. I love it. So you have a 2-year-old, and I know you've shared this with me. Can we share it publicly? Did she have another on the way?
Yes, yes, we can share it publicly. Yes, we do.
All
We have
right.
another on the way. Yes,
Congratulations.
thank
But
you.
tell me, how has being a parent, firstly, how has being a husband, a family person, a parent, how has that shaped your entrepreneur journey over the years?
Right. So for the longest time, I was kind of scared to have kids. I was like, "What is going on? This is crazy." Like, who would want to actually willingly sign up to take care of somebody? It's like there was a lot. But once that happened, and I got over that initial fear, I found myself actually being hyper aware of my time and where my time is
Mm,
going. And whereas before having a kid, I used to think that I have time to do this and I'll just do it later. Right now, I can just kind of relax or watch that extra episode on Netflix or whatever the case is. And lo and behold, it would take me forever to get those things done, whether, it's usually personal things I'm putting off or maybe even sending an email or something like that. I'd be like, okay, I can do it tomorrow. I have time. Now it's like I have less time, right? So my level of urgency is so much higher. And I feel like that there is just a less of a time frame that I have to get things done. So I have to just do it now. So I feel like I'm more efficient than I've ever been actually after having a kid. I know what my priorities are. But like I mentioned earlier, what is my intention? I have to figure out what my intentions are. That kind of makes it very clear for you. Like when you have a kid, you're like, okay, like things that are important to you come up to the surface and it forces you to choose.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
so
I've had a,
that's kind of helpful.
I've had a similar, I've had a similar change in my thought process where the currency of time and the currency of focus, I've started valuing it a lot more than I used to before having my son.
Hmm.
Ash, this has been truly a pleasure, and I'm sure our listeners will agree that there are a lot of nuggets that we got out of this. We got to share your personal journey. So thank you for this, and we really hope to have you on as a guest again, and we dive a little bit more personal, a little bit more about the mindsets.
Awesome. Yeah, it was a pleasure to be here. Thank you for asking me. Hopefully, your podcast is received by millions of people, and the next one we can delve into even more things that you said. So, thank you for everything, and good luck to you too.
Thanks. See you.